As the market takes a nosedive, a closer look at Donald Trump's notes reveals something unexpected. Tesla pricing details for full self-driving vehicles, including the Model X and Cybertruck. While economic uncertainty looms and people watch their pensions, retirements, and 401ks suffer, Trump appears to be engaging in an impromptu Tesla promotion. Meanwhile, his unpredictable tariff policies continue to wreak havoc, with abrupt threats, retractions, and renewed escalations adding to the turmoil. Yesterday, Donald Trump sat inside a Tesla, visibly stunned by its design. Having not driven in years, he seemed unfamiliar with even the basics of being behind the wheel. Meanwhile, as Americans struggle to afford necessities, protect vital programs, and secure their retirement savings, Trump appeared more focused on what felt like an impromptu car commercial for the world's richest man. At the same time, Elon Musk and Trump continue to make decisions that impact everyday people, firing veterans, undermining 9/11 first responders, and sending young operatives to access private data, including medical records, social security information, and tax documents. Despite this, the expectation remains that sympathy should be directed toward Musk, a man openly stating his intent to cause suffering while accumulating billions. Later, outside the White House, Trump addressed Ukraine, mentioning Marco Rubio, Steve Woff, and Michael Waltz. In a bizarre moment, he suddenly lost his train of thought, froze, and then abruptly declared, "They want death, huh?" What followed was an incoherent statement about people living in the country, leaving even his audience uncertain about what he was trying to say.
People have done a great job. Marco Rubio's been great. Steve Witkoff's been great. Michael Waltz. They're all, every one of them, they've really stepped up. They are into it. They want to see two things. By far, number one is death of people that aren't citizens of our country, but they're people, just like you.
He went on to admit that he hasn't driven in years and doesn't really know how to anymore.
So I just wanted to make a statement. I'm going to buy one. Now, here's the bad news. I'm not allowed to drive because I haven't driven a car in a long time, and I love to drive cars. But I'm going to have it at the White House, and I'm going to let my staff use.
Donald Trump, who often presents himself as a symbol of strength, openly admitted he doesn't know how to drive. Meanwhile, former President Biden had no such issue. When asked whether his tariff policies were causing economic harm and hurting people, Trump quickly dismissed any responsibility, simply responding, "Nah, Biden's fault."
Mr. President, you mentioned the ups and downs in the stock market. You said it'll go up, it'll go down. But do you and your tariff policies right now bear any responsibility for the turmoil we're seeing this week?
Biden gave us a horrible economy. He gave us horrible inflation. And I think the market was going to go very, very bad. If anything, I have a lot of very smart people, friends of mine and great businessmen. They're now investing because of what I'm doing. Because long-term, what I'm doing is making our country strong again, financially strong, militarily strong, and strong if we want to get away. Remember this, we have wars. When I left, we had no wars. We didn't have Ukraine and Russia. We didn't have October 7th. We didn't have that disaster that took place with the withdrawal from Afghanistan. And you look at what's happened.
Bringing the facts to the table, Donald Trump repeatedly promised during his campaign that he would fix everything on day one, as if by miracle. Meanwhile, under former President Biden, inflation had already dropped to 2%, interest rates were easing, GDP growth was strong, unemployment had hit record lows, and job growth was at an all-time high. Major legislative efforts, like the Infrastructure Act, Inflation Reduction Act, PACT Act, and CHIPS Act were making a tangible impact. Yet, Trump insisted he alone would be the one to fix everything.
So when I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one. We will end Kamala's war on American energy, and we will drill, baby, drill. We're going to drill.
Laying out the facts is crucial, especially when stacked against the relentless propaganda machine at play. While Trump's actions send the economy into chaos, millions of Americans are struggling, living paycheck to paycheck with no certainty about their financial future. Meanwhile, Trump and Musk are dismantling the lives of veterans, military personnel, and their families, all while pushing massive cuts to the Department of Education, recently announcing plans to lay off 50% of its workforce. Yet, on Fox News, the narrative is entirely different. Instead of addressing the real impact of these decisions, they paint Trump as a selfless leader, claiming he's doing all of this for the people, when in reality, he could be relaxing on a yacht with Melania.
And I think Trump deeply resonates with him. Trump said he's putting it all on the line. Trump said this is something that's really not good for him. President Trump chose to do something for our country. He could be on a yacht somewhere, floating around with Melania. So true. He put it all on the line as a billionaire. Elon Musk put it all on the line. And it's not self-serving. They're doing it for the good of the country. So let's give them a break here as they try to save the future.
Donald Trump wouldn't be on a yacht with Melania. That much is certain. The yachts he spent time on tell a very different story. In the early 1990s, Trump hosted beauty pageants for young girls, not women. And according to a Guardian article from years ago, those yachts were filled with older men, some old enough to be the girls' grandparents, engaging in disturbing behavior. Trump was right there just before hosting the Look of the Year competition at his own property. Meanwhile, his press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, attempted to shift the focus, dismissing concerns about the economy by proudly announcing that Trump would be in a Tesla later that day. The attempt to distract from economic hardship was striking. As Keith Edwards pointed out, recent MSMIR polls indicate that former Vice President Kamala Harris would overwhelmingly defeat Trump in Michigan if the election were held today. This underscores the importance of pushing back against misinformation and exposing the truth. Just yesterday, MAGA Republicans pushed through a continuing resolution that they claim funds the government, but in reality aims to dismantle it. They're eliminating funding for 22 programs, diverting money away from Veterans Affairs, schools, and law enforcement, while gutting resources for Washington, D.C., including its police and education system. They're slashing children's health care funding to hand out tax breaks to billionaires like Elon Musk, all while using the White House as a backdrop for selling Teslas. Beyond the economic cruelty, another moment in Congress made headlines. During a committee hearing, a MAGA Republican referred to Congresswoman Sarah McBride of Delaware, a transgender representative, as Mr. McBride. In response, McBride addressed the chair as Madam Chair, standing her ground. Democratic Congressman Bill Keating immediately stepped up to defend her, highlighting yet another instance of blatant disrespect within the chamber.
I now recognize the representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ranking Member Keating, also wonderful.
Mr. Chairman, could you repeat your introduction again, please?
Yes, we have set the standard on the floor of the House, and I'm simply...
What is that standard, Mr. Chairman? Would you repeat what you just said when you introduced a duly elected representative from the United States of America? Please.
I will. The representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Mr. Chairman, you are out of order. Mr. Chairman, have you no decency? I've come to know you a little bit, but this is not decent.
We will continue this hearing.
You will not continue it with me unless you introduce a duly elected representative the right way.
This hearing is adjourned.
The cruelty is unmistakable. Cruelty for the sake of being cruel. Treating someone with such blatant disrespect serves no purpose other than to demean and dehumanize. Congresswoman Sarah McBride is a human being, and there is no justification for bullying her unless the intent is purely malicious. Credit to Democratic Congressman Bill Keating for immediately standing up in her defense. All this talk from MAGA about being alpha and masculine rings hollow. Truly strong and confident people don't go around calling themselves alpha or acting like masculinity is under attack. J.D. Vance, for example, constantly pushes the idea that masculinity is somehow threatened, but real masculinity isn't fragile enough to need defending. Growing up, the lesson was clear. Real strength isn't about punching down or bullying marginalized communities. It's about standing up for those being targeted, showing empathy, and using strength to uplift rather than oppress. That's what real leadership looks like, not this constant cycle of cruelty and manufactured outrage. Meanwhile, MAGA Republicans like Brandon Gill continue pushing false narratives, claiming things may be really bad right now, but we were handed bankruptcy by Biden. The blame game continues, ignoring the actual policies and decisions that led to the current state of affairs.
President Trump inherited an economy and a government that is bankrupt, running $2 trillion deficits every single year. Unfortunately, he also inherited an appropriations process that has been busted, and the reality is that we just don't have and haven't had the time to bring us back to regular order to run a regular appropriations process. So what this CR does is it buys us more time as President Trump and DOJ are doing their incredible work that they're doing in identifying waste, fraud, and abuse.
Let's set the record straight with some key facts. The Wall Street Journal, which leans right, and Axios, which is more neutral, both reported on the U.S. economy in ways that showed strong growth predictions. In a headline from April 14, 2024, the Wall Street Journal proclaimed envy of the world. U.S. economy expected to keep powering higher, backed by economists raising their growth forecasts. Then, on July 12, 2024, Axios noted that inflation was opening the door to a Goldilocks economy, one that was just right for growth. But This momentum took a sharp turn when Donald Trump's tariff threats started to take their toll. Just last month, the Atlanta Federal Reserve had projected strong GDP growth, but after Trump's policies kicked in, their forecast changed drastically, predicting a 2.8% to 3% GDP contraction. This shift indicates we might be headed toward a major economic downturn, potentially even a depression. And as all of this unfolds, Trump supporters like Peter Navarro continue to push his narrative. After Trump made bizarre threats about annexing Canada, claiming it should become the 51st state, Navarro went on TV to defend the rhetoric, telling Canada to chill and accusing them of being too harsh in their response.
But frankly, the premier, he's been, I mean, look, just tamp it down, please, over there, okay? Just throwing down the hockey gloves. Stop that rhetoric, and let's just look at what we're trying to do. We love Canada, but look, there's some big issues there, and we're not going to tolerate anything but them stopping killing Americans and doing what's right with respect to things like steel and aluminum, which they've been dumping into our country, and that's stopping.
What we're seeing is truly pathetic behavior, and it's hard to look at it from any angle other than a complete failure of leadership. This isn't about political parties, it's about the actions themselves. The Trump administration is coming off as weak, erratic, and entirely out of control. It's hard to watch and even harder to accept.